You are going to be invigorated by the story of Mike Popowski. He's the CEO of Dagger, Atlanta's fastest growing agency. And all he does is win, 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 no matter what. Truly though, he has a winning mentality, backed by a super authentic aura. He is really real, really raw. He'll give it to you straight. And so join me now in listening to the story of Mike Popowski and Dagger.
Joining us this morning, Titania Jordan.
Tatiana Jordan. Did I get the name right? Jordan?
Titania.
Titania. Okay. Titania.
All right. Is Titania Jordan?
Popowski.
Titania.
Please tell me you got that. That's so good.
Yeah. Hopefully that we got that.
We got that.
That'd be the great intro.
Oh my gosh. Thank you everybody so much for tuning in. I'm here with Mike Popowski.
CEO of Dagger.
Yeah, well I was gonna say that, but because you have a winning mentality, like you just jumped right in and did that. And that's why you're here on our show.
Thanks.
Because of like how you took an agency that was in the red to the black in a pretty game-changing way. So, you know, in a nutshell, what is the Dagger Agency?
So Dagger is a strategic content agency based here in Atlanta. We've got some great clients, Interface, Aflac, Mizuno, to name a few. But when you hear content, it means so many different things to so many different people right now. The way we look at content is really most simply it's the touch point between brand and consumer, and we want to get really good at creating those experiences so that those are valuable to the consumer, shareable, and that's changed a lot. You know, that's sort of, I think, modern advertising. You know, 10, 15 years ago, before the advent of social media and mobile, advertisers were in control pushing messages.
Yep.
And that's different now. So the touch points need to be, you know, remarkable, valuable, snackable, right? People are on the go.
What?
Exactly.
What?
So, you know, and video's proliferating as well. So how do you create, you know, snippets of video where you're getting it into consumers' hands? And one thing about us too, I think we like looking at brands almost as publishers, right? So if you think about the Mashables, the Bleacher Reports, the Refinery 29s, even the New York Times, they're constantly putting out relevant content, culturally relevant content, and thinking about how to distribute that. And that's not very dissimilar from what brands need to be doing right now.
Totally.
So that's kind of the mindset and the approach we take. We're a little over 30 people, so we've grown pretty quickly. So in 3 years, 3 years ago we were 0. Today we're a little over 30. So some fast growth from an agency standpoint, from a service-based business. I mean, you look at some of the startups in Silicon Valley, and they do that in a week. But you know, when you look at an agency business, that's pretty quick growth. So it's a great size because I think we have requisite manpower to do a lot of great work, but we're still small, agile, you know, without layers of bureaucracy and things like that.
It's a beautiful place to be.
It is a good place to be. Yeah, it's exciting, really exciting right now.
And so your experience, you worked at AOL. What did you do at AOL?
So I was a business development coordinator. It was my first job out of college. And at that time, AOL was sort of like the Google job. I remember sort of being out in social environments and hearing, "Oh, you're at AOL," and it was a fantastic first job. You know, I just had that exposure to the corporate world, and what that looked like, how to work, quite honestly. Millennials sometimes coming out of school don't fully have that appreciation of what it looks like to grind. Some do, so that's not a blanket dig on millennials. But so we basically, if you think back to 2001, 2002, when there's banner ads within the AOL service, right? People used to go there for their internet and have the content there. We were selling those ads. I was selling those ads. Our team sold the ad space to pharmaceutical companies.
Oh,
so
nice.
Yeah, so it was a great first gig, you know, because I was, you know, flying to New York, working with media agencies, and so from a publisher side, selling the ad space. But I quickly morphed into the agency world. So there was a startup in DC. So AOL's headquarters, Dulles, Virginia. So I was living in DC at the time and morphed into, or transitioned into working for a startup agency there. And there were two twin brothers who had broke off from AOL and started their own agency, and I was there.
Not the Winklevoss twins, right?
Not the Winklevi. Yeah, so these guys, they were 27-year-old twin brothers, and I joined as the first employee. We ended up on the Inc. 5000, just fast growth.
Okay.
So it was, for me, it was paid MBA. I really learned, there was the marketing bend, but really how to grow, scale an agency. Early on in my career, I was very exposed to the numbers, the operations of the business, and I kind of got a fuller picture of business versus, being at an AOL environment where you're more of a spoke in the wheel and you've got this focused job. So early on in my career, I think I got the benefit of both kind of the broader corporate atmosphere, but also the startup, which I think led to, partially led to where I am now.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
And you had some amazing experience both
Thanks.
at Moxie and Chai at Day.
Yes.
So talk about that briefly.
Sure. So, so post the agency in DC, I did some consulting for a few years, and AARP was my main client. So it's the American Association of Retired Persons. What was really interesting is, so that was 2008 when social marketing was in its nascent phase, and people didn't really know how to talk about it. So I got hired on to be the viral marketing consultant, right? If you think about AARP hiring on the viral marketing consultant.
That's pretty innovative for them.
Yeah, it was actually. Their head of brand kind of got it. Again, we didn't really know how to talk about it at the time, but that was the move I made. And so I did that for a few years, and then the life of a consultant is interesting, but again, I got back to this mentality of eating what you kill, right? I mean, when you're a consultant, it's feast or famine, as many you know, and you really got to be your own business. So it was a great experience, again, from the business side, but also from the marketing side, and kind of coming into a space that was emerging. So I did that, and then through my work at AARP, I found an agency here in Atlanta called Engage. So I actually wrote the RFP that was issued to Engage, and that's how I got to know Engage.
Badass. Sorry, something in my throat.
Through my work, thanks. Through my work there, I met the folks at Engage, and they ended up hiring me actually. And so I got brought in to lead a group of accounts and also help develop the business there. And that was a very entrepreneurial experience for me because I came in really with no book of business, and we ultimately my team ended up leading some flagship accounts for Engage, and that ultimately led to the acquisition by Publicis and the merge with Moxie. So that's how I became part of Moxie, because if you look at Moxie today, they're a convergence of Engage, which I think was really one of the preeminent digital social agencies here in Atlanta, 2010, 2011, leading up to that merger. So I came to Moxie through that, and I did the full Moxie for about a year, and then I decided to go to New York. And that move was really, I just had always looked at New York and as some of the best agencies in the world, some of the best work in the world is coming out. It's really the epicenter of marketing and media and advertising. And so that was always, I think, a goal for me. And it just made a lot of sense. I'm from New England, and it was closer to family. And so was there for almost a year, and I got a call about an opportunity back down in Atlanta. And it was an agency called Sandbox, which was very, very small. It was out of Atlanta Tech Village.
Yeah.
And we had a board, and for a number of different reasons, the previous CEO had exited. And it was very small at the time, again, 3-4 people. But I knew the board, I knew the team, and they basically said, we'd love to have you come down and run this thing. And so that was kind of the big, that's when you sort of see your path going one way. I could stay as a W-2 and keep a job and kind of going down that path, or take a giant pay cut, move back down to Atlanta and give this a go. So that's how I got back down here, and that was kind of the decision point. But I very vividly remember getting that call and the call went something like, "Hey, you're the person we want. I'd love to tell you that this is competitive, but we want you." And I said, "I'd love to tell you I have to think about this, but this is kind of my dream opportunity." Right? Because I just knew we've got a great founder. Our head of operations were already in place. I'd worked with them in the past from Engage. Some of our board members were Engage folks, and so I knew the team, and I knew with that mix we could be successful. And so there were problems, and I think every business has problems finding what they are and solving them.
Right.
But I always looked at it as glass half full, right? So to me, it was a leap, but it was a very calculated leap, and it was something that I had done in my career enough entrepreneurially, or in other businesses where I felt like it was the right opportunity for me. So
I love this. So much about your personal journey reflects mine. Just being in the advertising media startup space, both traditional and now digital. I used to work at Star 94, which was like the primary radio station in Atlanta when I was a kid, selling airtime, and then, and now I'm CPO of a startup, and meeting in San Francisco and New York, but yet we're based in Atlanta, and there's a very, very purposeful reason for that.
Yeah.
So just as you're talking, my heart is leaping bounds. I'm like, I get it.
I'm really bullish on Atlanta. There's all of these great brands here, and that's part of the reason why I saw the opportunity as well. And there's some good agencies here, but I just felt like there was the opportunity for the next best thing with what's happening with the film industry and the influx of talent coming here, what's happening in tech here. I'm super, super bullish on Atlanta, so I'm glad.
I love it. There's so much creative talent.
Really
and
is.
aside, have you seen the launch of Swaglanta?
I have not, no.
Oh, okay. So after when we wrap, I've got to show you. I just ordered the sweatshirt. It's sick. Swaglanta. Why didn't I think of that?
It's pretty good.
Right?
Yeah, so we're actually working with the Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce's Choose ATL's initiative to retain and attract talent to the city. And it's such an interesting endeavor because Atlanta's very different than, the New Yorks, the San Franciscos, the Chicago. Those are very built cities. They have their own brand. Mm-hmm. What I like about Atlanta, it's in beta a little bit, right?
Yes!
If you look ahead 10 years, you don't really know what the makeup and the complexion of the city is going to be. So for an entrepreneur, I think it's a super exciting place to live and create. And as you just said, there's great talent here. That's my little
Atlanta is in beta right
advertise
now.
it. Yeah, that's my Atlanta plug right there.
Yeah, dude, I'm tweeting the what out of that. That is just, it's
nice.
so relatable. Let's talk about your winning mentality.
Sure.
You took Dagger from where it was to like a really amazing place. In fact, didn't I read that it's the fastest growing agency in Atlanta?
We are.
Yeah.
We are.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you do that?
A lot of work.
Yes.
I think there's a lot that goes into it. You talk about the winning mentality. So much of what we do is driven by growth and new business. Mm-hmm. So that's part and parcel of growing an agency are these pitches. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of the basics in terms of just business development, but there's a couple things that I think separate us. One on the business development side, but more so, because we're a service-based business, we are the sum of our people, right? We're not selling a product per se, we're selling processes and people. So to me, we're very, very big on culture. In fact, our sixth hire, when in those early phases when you're needing people to do the work, we made a very intentional and conscious effort to say, this person's going to be dedicated on recruiting some of the best talent, really just focus on building that talent pipeline and starting to get our name out there more. Mm-hmm. So that's a big focus for us, talent and culture. Mm-hmm. and I think every company says that, and so it's a little cliche, but I think, we stood behind that early on with our investment in that. And I think it's paid dividends for us.
Clearly.
We've had one person leave the company in 3 years, and that person moved out of state. So we've had literally 100. In agencies have 30% churn. So
yeah, that's a really telling and complimentary statistic.
So I'll put that in terms of winning, right? It starts with the team, right?
Yes.
But in terms of winning new business and things like that, I think Pitches for me, it's all preparation. You have an hour with 4 to 5 people that you've never met, right? Usually never met, and they are living and breathing this brand. So you've really got to go in and give them something that's remarkable. So those to me are highly prepared, highly orchestrated situations. You know, the winning mentality comes also from, I thrive in competition personally. If I took a strengths finder today, I'd be #1 in competitiveness. So, you know, that fuels me is when we're up against other agencies, and it's that part of the business can be stressful, but it's fun, and there's a lot of adrenaline to it. It's very creative. So, you know, we talked winning mentality, but that covers some of my perspective on how we've gotten from A to, we'll call it C, not Z.
Not Z.
Z's still down the road. Yeah.
I love that.
Cool.
You said something in a, I think, Friendly Human interview about thinking ahead, that in 5 years, would you look back and regret if you didn't make that choice? Right. I think that's something we all need to really keep in the forefront of our minds, is we're so bogged down in the granular, everyday decisions.
Right.
You've got to think big picture.
Right.
So just expand on that a little bit.
I just use that as a framework or a lens for just making really big decisions in my life. And so if we were just talking about the decision to move back to Atlanta, I just think that's a nice litmus test to say, okay, you're not really sure what to do. And I use that, fast forward 5 years, look back, what do you regret less, right? I mean, you want to live with no regrets. We don't want to sit here 80, 90, hopefully 100 and say, I wish I had done that.
That's right.
You know, so for me, I looked, you know, I did that exercise. I fast forwarded 5 years, looked back, and I was like, if the worst case scenario, this fails, and I fall flat on my face and we fall flat on our face, I can always go back to New York and get another job, but there will never be another opportunity like this. So I just felt like this was the one that I would regret least, quite honestly. It sounds kind of negative, but it's sort of an interesting way a lens to look through. And I just said one other thing too, is facing the worst case scenario, right? If you face that, then you become sort of fearless, right?
Everything else is gravy.
Exactly, right? So looking at, I mean, look, we live in, there's a lot of people talking about gratitude, but we're living in a first world where a lot of things are really great. And if the worst thing is I have to go find another job, that's not a really worst case scenario. So to me, it became a no-brainer. Yeah.
Being fearless is a quality that I'm growing into slowly over the years, and I love it.
It's good.
It's liberating.
It is. Yeah.
It's awesome. So I want to get just a little personal here. We totally can not do that if you want, but people who are sitting here listening to you speak and hearing your story are like, okay, yeah, of course he's had a great life. Like, he's awesome. He's smart and well-educated and successful and, right place, right time, like whatever, but your life has not been without hardship, and it has not been without challenge. And so it'd be really cool if we could, be authentic for a moment and let people know, like, you had to overcome some things.
For sure. Well, one thing I would say is I do have this mantra that struggle equals strength, right? I mean, we're all going to have these hardships. So, how is it that you bounce back? I don't know if you know this one, but I actually have a 19-year-old college-age son who, from the time he was 5 to now, I raised him as a single dad. Yeah. So when I was started at Engage, a lot of my work, and even when I was working at the agency in DC, I was in New England working remotely because that's where he had started his life, and that's where I was. So I was flying back and forth. But single
parents are like, just, you know what I mean?
Well, I'm lucky. He's a great kid. He made it easy for me. I mean, he's literally naturally such a good kid that he's not a kid. He's a man now, but. Are you old
enough to have a 19-year-old?
Yeah, so I
Can we talk about that too?
I was young. I was very young.
Okay.
I think the best things in life aren't fully planned.
Right.
I was in college, and now I turned 40. I turned 40 in three weeks.
I need some of that youth serum you're drinking. That's some good stuff right there.
But that was it was a challenge, of course, right? I mean, but it was one of the best things in life that I've
Wow.
done. Yeah, for sure. So there's that.
Yeah. And again, like, you persevere, you succeed. It's the winning mentality. It's like, I'm going to take what's given to me and make the best of it. And not only make the best of it, but like blow it up.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what life is about. It's just like next level, you know?
Right.
Do you drink coffee?
I do.
Okay. I'm like, if you do this without coffee, like, unmic me, I'm done. Like, I can't even.
I'd like to get off it. I'd like to, start the tea thing a little bit.
Tea's good.
But yeah, I mean, I think I discovered coffee early 20s, and I was like, how was I living before that?
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
As soon as I started, I switch on.
I picked up coffee about 2 years ago, like, when my startup career had, parallel paths, and can't really imagine life without it now.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something I need to be cognizant of, that I don't go too overboard with. So you've been CEO of Dagger for how many years?
A little over 2.5.
A little over 2.5. Okay, while you're in the process of scaling an agency, it's almost like uncharted territory in the city of Atlanta, in many ways. You are also struggling with chronic pain. Chronic back pain that impacts your sciatic nerve.
Yes.
And tell the story about your surgeries.
Yeah, sure. We can go there. I'm happy to. So yeah, I've had some on and off back issues, 20s and 30s, and kind of mid 30s. I was running and one day, and it was one of those things that went and it just never bounced back. And I got there through chiro PT and injections, and I got to probably 80-90%, and I was fine. When I was living in New York, everything was pretty good. But about a year, 13, 14 months ago, it came back. And yeah, I mean, basically what happens if you're not familiar with the anatomy, you've got your vertebrae, and this is becoming a totally different conversation right now, but you've got your vertebrae, you've got a disc in between. I had a ruptured disc that was sitting on my sciatic nerve. So I went through the chiro PT, injections, everything to try to remedy it. And I just couldn't fix it. And I was to the point where I was hobbling to the bathroom in the morning. I couldn't sit in meetings for, people who've been in meetings with me saw me just stand after about 15 minutes just for pain. So yeah, I went in July 26th for the surgery. 16 days later, during my recovery, on a Friday I sneezed. I re-herniated the disc, the most pain I've ever felt in my life, fell to my knees, and went in to see my surgeon on the Monday. He pulled me in for emergency surgery on the Tuesday, so I had it done the second time. So I'm actually, as we sit here, I'm just kind of coming out of that. But there were a couple, there's a lot of things that I took from that experience. We kind of talk about struggle equals strength. It's one of the most difficult things because, most challenges that I've faced in my life have been, okay, if I just grind, I can fix this.
Right.
But something like this, I feel like I've kind of turned the steering wheel over a little bit, and you're at the mercy of your body and things. So it's letting go. So for me, there's a lot of things I think I've taken away from it. Empathy. When I used to hear like somebody else was in pain, I was like, well, they can fix that, right? Yeah, exactly. And I sort of had this mentality that you can fix everything. So that changed that a little bit. From a business standpoint, it was very difficult for me to walk away from the business for 2 or 3 days at a time.
Yeah.
And I had to walk away for 6 to 8 weeks, and so I learned a couple things. I learned that I had some very capable lieutenants, right?
Solid team.
Shout out, yeah, exactly. So that was big as a business owner, quite honestly, and leader, to know that I can walk away and great things can still happen.
I have goosebumps, like thinking about just your team, like rallying around you. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, it was cool. They were so great. Really great team. And it goes back to our earlier conversation about building that great culture. Yeah, very, very grateful to have not only this overall great supportive team, but very capable team and capable leaders that can run the business for that period of time. And our founder was out on maternity leave at the same time as well, so we kind of had this double whammy, and it was interesting to the business.
And you're still the fastest growing agency in Atlanta.
Yeah, I think that was before that. We got that claim before that, but so now we're coming out of that right now. I'm healthier. Carla, our founder, is coming back from maternity leave, so we're almost like we're looking at this as startup phase 2, right? I always I read an article from Jeff Bezos, how he's always looking at Amazon as sort of this day one mentality, kind of the reset button gets hit all the time, and that's how I approach our business. Is each month or each year, it's like, how are we just looking at it completely different? So we've even put an addendum, expanded our vision a little bit more, but with us coming back, it's just a good opportunity to just look at everything with a fresh set of eyes. And so with all those trials and tribulations, I try to take away kind of the positive, not only personally, right, what I learned as a human being, but also from a business standpoint, some good stuff. So
struggle equals strength. Remember that.
Yeah, that's good.
What you have a very extensive background, great opportunities in so many different places. What would you say for people watching are some things that traditional marketers and advertisers are doing wrong?
Yeah.
And what can they do better or different?
Sure. There's a couple things that I look at marketing. One, I think things move very fast in our space, right? So
it's exponential.
Especially now, right? And so I look at consumer technologies, what's happening in Silicon Valley, because that ultimately shapes consumer behavior, which shapes how we have to think as marketers, right? So I think people need to constantly be trend spotting to understand what is the new shift in consumer behavior, because that's how marketers can authentically and effectively jump in that space and speak to them.
Yeah. I read online this morning that the cloud's going away. I'm like what? Like, no, I need my Google Drive.
I have too much stuff in the cloud.
I'm like Dropbox, Google Drive.
Like, Evernote, everything, yeah.
Right? But like just being open to that, it's like, okay, if that happens, I mean, I don't know, TechCrunch or something. I'll send to you after. Yeah. Anyway, I interrupted you.
But no, it's fine. But so I think as marketers, right, I mean, I think, one, we need to just understand that things are evolving very, very, very quickly. And I think where brands get into trouble is they're moving too slow, right? They're not catching up fast enough. And so many different industries are being disrupted by what's happening on the internet, quite honestly. And brands who are bootstrapping and talking to their consumers really, really effectively and offering a product and service that's really, really seamless. And some of these other brands, just haven't caught up. You look at the mattress industry, for example. Like, look at like Casper, right? Now you get a bed in a box at your door. So there's a lot of industries that are being disrupted. So I think just from that standpoint, businesses move slow, but I think that cascades into marketing, right?
Yep.
And the other thing I say is to my team is we've got to be consumers of our own stuff, right? Like if we don't like it, right? If you wouldn't watch a video or, click on an ad or like a comment or a post or whatever the piece of content is, we shouldn't be making it, right? And so I think we have to be really good consumers and savvy consumers before you can be good marketers, right?
Yes.
And I just don't think, it sounds very basic, but when you look at people being, let's do programmatic ad banner buying, I look at that, I'm like, are you and I gonna leave here today and just, I wanna go click on that banner?
No.
Or do I wanna see the story that Chipotle or somebody else put out that was really culturally relevant, had a story arc, So I think big advice to marketers, it's very basic. Sometimes I think marketing can be over-engineered, especially brand marketing.
Yes.
And I look at some of those things as just really, really think about the consumer and the audience from not only their behaviors, but so their behaviors kind of in technology, but also just their thought processes and patterns and where they live, right, and how they behave. So.
And also just going back to what you said about the reset button, like sometimes it just takes, like, forget everything we've done, forget everything we've been taught, forget everything we're doing, reset. Let's look at this with a fresh set of innovative eyes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, the platforms that consumers are consuming more content or information on are becoming it's social media and more within mobile environments, right?
Yep.
So, and those platforms are changing very rapidly. You look at Facebook Live or Instagram Live, and those things change the implications for marketers very quickly and the implications for attention. So I think you've got to be staying on that stuff. You've got to be in this very experimental mode as marketers versus let's create this beautiful 30-second spot and ship it 6 months down the road, right? I think that's kind of goes back to that publisher mentality that I'm thinking about earlier, is constantly be producing and creating.
Yeah, and talk to me where I am in a way that is relevant to me and doesn't stick out like a sore thumb.
Right.
Fit into my authentic, native conversations.
Be valuable, right?
Be valuable.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you're selling, you know, buy this, do this, nobody's going to do that anymore. I mean, you don't have time. Right?
No.
You're gonna engage in something that's meaningful.
Totally.
Yeah.
So, do you blog? Do you tweet? Are you on Instagram? Like, where do you spend the most time for people that want to like soak up your goodness?
Oh, you know, I go on and off Medium.
Medium. I love Medium.
Medium's cool.
It's a good brand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got off it during back surgery, post back surgery, and it's kind of my, this is good. You're gonna have me focus on. I'm gonna knock out like 17 Medium posts.
You should.
Yeah, I will. But that's my thing. We have a blog, and I blogged on there a little bit, but that's mostly for my team and a lot of thought leadership from our team. So, yeah, I think Medium's the way to find me.
Perfect. So for people who want more of Mike Popowski and Dagger Agency, where do they go?
Dagger.agency is where they go. Yeah, that's the best place to go.
Okay.
And then, you know, our jobs are there, our blogs are there. You can see who we're working with, our recent work, etc. So Dagger.agency. Yeah.
Awesome. And then I'm a huge pay it forward, give first, how can we help type of human, because we just need more of them on the planet.
Yeah.
What do you need? Is there anything we can do for you? Anybody out there watching in YouTube land, you know, like how can we make your life or Dagger Agency's life better, cooler, awesome?
I mean, I think our business thrives off of working with great brands and progressive brands and innovative, thoughtful, curious talent. So I think if you're in one of those buckets, come talk to us. I think that would be how I would respond to that.
I love that. That's awesome. Mike, you are one of my favorite guests. I'm going to put it out there. Thank you for being here.
Wow, thank you.
Up top, dude.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mike Popowski.
Thanks.